Well, welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs, everyone. We are in the home stretch of the fall, and we are still streaming more stories than ever before because with this economy, more people than ever are trying to figure out what does it take to be successful. You know, a big part of our economy is banking, and we feel very fortunate to have a returning guest with us, Itamar Khalif, Vice President, Rockland Trust, and today we're going to talk about liquidity through these uncertain times. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So this is your topic, and I do think it's very interesting because, I always told my clients, my students, and everyone that cash is king. And for those who have been able to work through this economy and shift their business, the ones with cash have found it a little bit easier to sort of restructure. So I'm interested in your thoughts.
Well, as I'm not telling you anything you don't know. We are living through a very, very unique and challenging period of time. And if anybody tells you or me that they know what's going to be on the other side of it, I think that's not realistic. When you break it into pieces from economy, from a political standpoint, from a global standpoint, health standpoint, there's so much uncertainty in everything that, in every area that we look at. Now, over the years, we have seen several recessions, and the people who survived the previous recession didn't have a lot of debt and had a lot of liquidity. This is a unique time in the aspect that there's a lot of businesses that are currently thriving through this. And the thing is that we don't know what's going to happen if or when the federal government will stop pushing liquidity into the market. We don't know if or when there's going to be a vaccine and if or when people will start using it. So even thriving businesses today have to be on the defense and think about liquidity. Arrange lines of credit now when they have the cash coming in. If they're looking to buy a piece of equipment, perhaps be a little bit more creative, and instead of paying cash, involve some kind of financing that makes sense, simply to increase their runway in case something happens within the next few months. It is so important right now to think liquidity, cash, other access to other capital, like maybe a home equity line for a small business that may not qualify for a traditional line of credit, and so on and so forth.
I'm really glad you brought up the last part. And, this whole thing of don't rely on the government, don't rely on a vaccine, take responsibility for yourself, I think is one key point you brought up. The second one, I go back to my mother. My mother's not been around for a long time, but she grew up during the Depression. And she always told me, be careful with debt, always have cash. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people during the Depression learned that on how to sort of stay in the thing. But you basically brought up a topic that I like, and that is if you don't feel you have the liquidity you need, you can look at alternative sources like your home to try to get liquidity for your business, because we need to keep your business going. Can you just dive a little bit deeper into that whole thing about how to, for those who are listening who have small businesses, because I think that's what we're talking about, and they're thinking, my runway isn't very long. What are the ways that they can look at finding liquidity right now?
I'll answer your question, but before I do that, this applies to pretty much most businesses, regardless of size. If you think about the travel industry, for instance, all those big monstrous resorts on the islands that have to carry those resorts throughout this period of time with no income coming in, and I suspect that the governments don't help them because the islands don't have much money to support them. So this is not only small business. The uniqueness of the small business is that it depends on the individual. When it comes to small business, it depends on their credit, on their assets, liquidity, and so on and so forth. So None of us like debt. I don't like debt. I'm sure you don't either. But properly structured debt can be an ally, can be a tool that helps a business lengthen the time that they have cash. So if a small business owner right now is doing well and they have cash and they need to expand by either buying a piece of equipment or they need to hire people, they have a choice. They can either use their money, and then if something goes bad, they go back to the bank, but the bank usually will not lend money to somebody who is struggling. They can go to the bank now when they have the capital, get financing, and 6 months from now, if nothing goes wrong and the economy starts to straighten out and they feel comfortable with the outcome, they can pay off the debt.
I sort of have my own answer to the next thing, and a lot of and I'm glad you said this, that liquidity has nothing to do with size. On the other side, a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners I know, they have reaped benefits out of their business for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
And they don't like to keep cash in their business.
Mm-hmm.
So they have personal assets, but they don't have business, they don't have a lot of business assets.
True.
Do you have a philosophy about what you need to say to these people at this particular point of time? I know I have my own philosophy. I'll even tell you ahead of time. I've been in business since 1985. I can't say every year has been skyrocketing upward. And my attitude has been, during the good years I take, and during the bad years I give back. Mm-hmm. But not every owner feels that way. But I think that is the responsibility of the owner, to understand the give and take from personal to professional. You want to address that as well?
You bring up a very good point. It's a combination between liquidity, tax liability, and so on and so forth. As a banker, we like to see businesses leave money in the business. We typically don't like to see that the business is drained from all its assets and all the assets sitting on the individual balance sheet. However, it is certainly the right of the owner to do that. So as long as they are able to keep those assets liquid and are willing to put them back into the business when needed. If they use that money to buy a vacation home that's not very liquid, that doesn't help the business during those tough years that you're talking about. So again, it's thinking about the liquidity. And again, if you take the money out of the business for personal benefits, that's certainly your decision, as long as you're willing to put it back when needed.
Well, I'm going to add to it, because I've seen this frequently in business, all too frequently, and that is when the business needs cash and there are personal assets, but there are shareholders. Not all shareholders want to put money into the business.
That's true.
And when it becomes a debate, that could actually kill the business as well.
Yes.
I don't know if you have an opinion about the fact, when you have some shareholders who are willing to put money up and some who aren't, how to handle or work your way through that, and if you've experienced that.
Typically, the best way to handle that is actually before that happens, and that is within the chart, the organization of the business agree on some terms as far as who puts money up front to start the business, and under what circumstances people are obligated to put more money in, or on the flip side of it, how can everybody take money out under what circumstances? If you if you control it or structure it, not control it, structure it at the beginning of the relationship between the partners, that usually does not become a problem. In what you're talking right now, it's very typical when we see a business that's been around for a while, those issues have not been addressed initially, and now you have the business needs some cash, and some partners have liquidity, some don't. In those particular cases, you either restructure the ownership of the business, or if the owner that has the money willing to lend it to the business at some kind of an interest rate, that's another way that we've seen that being solved. I hope I answered your question.
Yes. Well, I have to, my last question is probably the easiest one. You have one of the more impressive backgrounds that we've seen on the show. I want to know if we have to hire you. Did you do that background, or did you have someone do it for you?
The background. Oh, this the bank did it. It's nice, isn't it?
Unbelievable. Very impressive, almost 3D-ish. So we appreciate that. But listen, if somebody were looking for you and at Rockland Bank and wanted to talk to you more about liquidity and different banking concerns they have during this economy, how would they find you?
My phone number is 508-280-7510, and I actually answer my phone usually. 508-280-7510, or my email is itamar.chamar.lif@rocklandtrust.com.
Well, this is our second meeting, and I'm looking forward to more throughout this year and the next year.
I hope so.
As things come on, and want to wish you all the best, and thank you very much. And remind everyone, this is Radio Entrepreneurs.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Right.